Scipio Africanus and Liu Che are the strongest infantry commanders in Rise of Kingdoms. There is no doubt about it. Them two alone are probably the two strongest in the game. But the question is, which one is the better investment? Which one is the stronger of the two commanders? So today, I will be answering that question. I will talk about the advantages and disadvantages of Scipio and the advantages and disadvantages of Liu Che. I will talk about which one works for specific players. And finally, I'll give you a final verdict. Which commander do I think is overall slightly better than the other? So if you want to know which commander is better than the other one, or if you want to know which one is going to be the best for you, you need to check out the rest of the video. Now let's begin by talking about the advantages to Scipio Africanus. And the first thing is, Scipio has a really nice debuff. There is no way around that. Scipio's debuff is one of, if not the best in the whole entire game. Maybe only second to Guan Yu in my opinion, because Scipio is giving a 30% health reduction to 3 targets in an AoE, and it's a health reduction, which is the best part about it. Health is the most premium stat in the whole entire game, maybe second to like all damage. So a 30% reduction is really high to 3 targets in an AoE. It's such a strong debuff. It's probably one of, if not the strongest parts of his kit, and it definitely brings him a lot of value on the open field, not only to you, but also to people in your murder ball. So it's supporting yourself and also supporting everyone else in your kingdom, which is really, really good. He also does have fairly good AoE damage, and the good thing about this is it is area of effect damage. Now, this is not necessarily an advantage over Liu Che, because Liu Che is already packing AoE damage, but it is important to note they both have AoE damage, which is fairly nice. The next thing I like about Scipio Africanus' kit, he has a lot of march speed. He has up to 25% march speed. It is 5% possible more march speed more than Liu Che, and the reason this is good is because it's going to allow him to get away from a lot of tough situations. For example, if you get swarmed on the open field, the thing you really need to get away is not more damage, because you're going to get killed either way, and you're going to take a bad trade either way. You need march speed to get away from that, and what does Scipio bring? He brings a very good amount of march speed, so you can get away from tough situations like being swarmed down in the open field. This also does bring Scipio Africanus a lot of value in game modes like Ark of Osiris, Champions of Olympia, Sunset Canyon even, and so that means that Scipio's got a lot more value outside of the open field as well. Not saying Liu Che doesn't have value outside the open field, but the march speed in Scipio's kit definitely does help him get a nice advantage in game modes like Ark of Osiris and Champions of Olympia especially, and obviously allows him to sustain himself more on the open field. The next thing I really like about Scipio Africanus is that he has a lot of instant damage on his third skill, on par with Alexander the Great actually. Alexander the Great is 1700 instantly, just instant damage factor. Scipio Africanus has a 10% chance to trigger continuous damage factor, dealing 1500 damage factor over 3 seconds. So you will have to attack for 3 seconds to get the full damage factor, but often that's not too difficult to achieve. Most fights, in my opinion, last from like 10 to 12 seconds on the open field. If you are like trying to stick with an opponent and try to do skill cycles and stuff, you're going to notice that Scipio's extra damage factor will trigger quite often. Another time I really like this is city popping. That's a really, really nice way to use it. And when you get city popped, it's also very nice, because if you get this to trigger when you get city popped, you're probably going to get a better trade against the person that city popped you, rather than them getting a better trade against you, because that instant damage is going to just make them take damage that's pretty much unavoidable unless they run away. So that is really, really nice instant damage factor, and the good thing about this is at this point you've pretty much covered everything you need for an open field commander. Scipio Africanus' active skill has AoE debuff, which is strong. He's got a lot of stats between his third skill and second skill, so he's got around 60% of total stats here. He's got march speed and he's got instant damage. You pretty much cannot ask for more in an open field commander, so with his first 3 skills alone, you've got a lot of open field value, which is extremely good. But it does become even better than that, because on his 4th skill, whenever you take skill damage on the map, there's a 50% chance of reducing that skill damage by 30% and giving a shield to 3 allied troops for 3 seconds, which is amazing. You're reducing the damage you're taking by 30% for 3 seconds, and then giving an allied troop a shield. 3 allied troops actually, and the reason this is good is because shielding effect saves a lot of save wounds, and if you're taking AoE to give this shield, there's a good bet there's going to be more AoE on the way. So if you give this shield, you're going to allow allied troops to basically ignore a large chunk of AoE damage which they might have taken, and also if they're already in combat, there's a good chance that they ignore some normal attack damage, which is strong, because that means at this point Scipio Africanus has an AoE debuff, he's got a fair amount of stats, he's got instant damage, he's got march speed, and then he's bringing proper support to 3 marches. He brings support to a murder ball, which is a nice thing to have as a bonus on a commander who's already got a ton of other stuff in his kit. So I really do like how he's bringing that shielding effect, and it's definitely a very strong part of his kit. The next advantage to Scipio Africanus is that he has a ton of value on every single skill. There is not a single skill in his main kit that is a bad skill. Between his first 4 skills, all 4 bring him some form of unique value on the open field. Now, the reason this is an advantage is because often there are commanders which are missing a skill of value. For example, Boudica Prime has what I like to call a dud skill. Her 4th skill is really useless. You get some healing factor and you deal some damage to infantry. Pretty bad for 320 possible gold heads because it is a 4th skill. It's really expensive. So you're going to be looking at commanders often with a dud skill, whether it be Henry's rally skill, Boudica's 4th skill, YSG's garrison skill. So all commanders have some form of a dud skill often, but Scipio Africanus doesn't have one of those. That means all of Scipio Africanus' kit is going to give you a ton of value on the open field. Even if you go for some of the later skills and you're trying to land on them, but you get maybe the 2nd skill or the 3rd skill, you're still guaranteed to get some value out of it because they're all good for the open field. The next and final advantage with Scipio Africanus that really stands out to me is that he works extremely well with one commander in mind, and that is Mehmed. Mehmed is a commander you get for free from the gold chest, who you can double relic, give 30% health, and increase skill damage, and is a commander you get pre-Season 3, and the reason that's really good is because you can get Mehmed's double relic, which is very, very strong, as you can see here, 30% health, 10% skill damage, and then put him with your Scipio Africanus as a commander pairing that's going to work extremely well on the open field, while you work on other commanders, whether it be working on Liu Che himself, working on a Guan Yu if you so choose, working on a Sargon, working on a Tariq. So a Mehmed with Scipio is going to allow you to access a lot more things in the game. And the reason that's good is because it's going to be a nice filler march, like I said before, as you work on other things, which is extremely powerful when you first hit Season 3 because you're trying to build a cav infantry archer march. If you can build a nice stable infantry march, that's going to do maybe 80% of what a meta infantry march would do. You're able to work on an arch march or a cat march and then maybe come back and finish that march off or get a better infantry commander than Mehmed. So Scipio is a good placeholder primary while you work on another commander, whether it be Sargon, whether it be Guan, whether it even be just a whole different march. Scipio with Mehmed is going to perform very well, so you don't really have to worry about it. Now, what about disadvantages to Scipio Africanus? And to be honest, there's really none. He's got a very well-rounded kit, and everything you would really want on a commander is pretty much in there. There are only a few very small nitpicks I can make. First one is his damage factor is like slightly off what I would call meta, because compared to a commander like Liu Che with 5 target AoEs, Scipio does not have a 5 target AoE, and his damage factor is not the absolute meta, but it's fine. Like, his damage factor is still very good. It's very solid. It's like one use damage. It's solid, just it's not currently meta. But it's okay, since his kit is still so good everywhere else, this damage factor doesn't really matter, even though it's not technically meta. So, Scipio Africanus, that's a really, really small disadvantage that basically means nothing, to be honest. The other disadvantage, his expertise is not that amazing, but to be honest, I see it as a bonus to the rest of his kit because you get the other 4 very good skills, and then you get a nice extra synergy if you're running Guan, or you get just a nice 10% flat skill damage bonus, which is decent for most infantry commanders. So his expertise, not the most valuable, but it is still fairly powerful. Keep in mind though, if you want the full value from his expertise, you do need to actually pair him with a Guan Yu, which is a bit upsetting, but you could also pair him with Flavius, which I wouldn't recommend, but I guess it's an option if you want the silence to get his expertise value. Though mostly his expertise is really just going to be that 10% skill damage bonus nowadays, especially if you're running him with someone like a Sargon or a Tariq or even Liu Che himself. His expertise is missing that extra boost to really make it valuable. However, the rest of his kit is so strong that it doesn't even matter. So now that we talk about the advantages and disadvantages on Scipio, what about Liu Che? And the first advantage with Liu Che is that Liu Che has a lot of smite damage factor, 2,250 to 5 targets in an arc shape, which is really, really good. It is better than Zhu Lang's damage. Best thing is though, it's smite damage, and the reason that's extremely strong is it bypasses all skill damage taken reductions. Nothing in the game that's a skill damage taken reduction will be able to reduce the amount of smite damage that Liu Che is doing. Also keep in mind though, it's affected by normal attack bonuses, which is technically a disadvantage, yet it's also an advantage, because that means each percent of normal attack that Liu Che is getting is going to be more valuable than any other stat, because currently not many commanders give large amounts of normal attack. So Liu Che, whenever you get even a 10% boost to that normal attack, you're going to notice that he's going to deal a lot more skill damage than he normally would, because that normal attack is going to be so valuable, since you often find commanders have more skill damage than they do normal attack nowadays. Also, he has a nice AoE march speed reduction on his active skill, but it is definitely not as valuable as Scipio's health reduction. The next thing I like in Liu Che's kit is that his second skill gives him the majority of his stats. The majority of Liu Che's open field stats are available on that second skill, and the reason this is a good thing is because it's the second skill. It's not too far in his kit. The stats are not mixed between every single skill, so you have to get them all. This one skill allows him to get most of his current open field, just pure statistical viability, at just 5511. So if you wanted to run a 5511 Liu Che right now, it would actually work because most of his stats are actually within that first skill and that second skill. But obviously, he is missing out on some of his more unique features, which I'll talk about soon. So this second skill is really strong, but the thing is, though, it's just his pure stats. You're missing out on stuff such as expertise and his fourth skill, which do provide some more unique bonuses. Speaking of his fourth skill basically gives him a whole extra debuff in his kit, a passive skill debuff. The way it works is whenever he deals smite damage, he reduces the damage dealt by target troops by 10% for the next 3 seconds, cooldown of 5 seconds. So that is very, very strong. Just straight up, that all damage reduction debuff is in a passive skill slot. It's triggered by dealing smite damage, which means if his active skill throws and this triggers at the same time, you're going to notice you're going to literally give a 5 target all damage reduction. Who does that kind of remind you of? It's Zhulang, but the best thing is, it's going to stack with Zhulang's active skill as well, because Liu Che is going to have it in the passive skill slot, while Zhulang is going to have it in the active skill slot. And even if there's another passive skill slot or damage reduction out there that I don't know of, it is also going to stack with Liu Che's because passive skill debuffs actually stack no matter where they are. Whether it's on another passive skill, whether it's on an active skill, they always stack. So passive skill debuffs are always the most valuable in the game, and Liu Che having a possible AoE or damage reduction on a passive skill slot is really, really strong, and then you get a nice bonus 10% normal attack as well. The final advantage to Liu Che's kit is definitely on his expertise, where he gains a 25% chance to launch an extra normal attack if he launches a normal attack on the open field. So whenever he's on the open field, 25% chance to launch an extra normal attack doesn't sound too insane. Why am I saying it's one of the most overpowered things in his whole entire kit? Well, think about it like this. A commander like Alexander the Great on his second skill is a 10% chance to launch instant damage factor into the opponent. Now, if Liu Che's expertise triggers, then you're going to notice that Alexander the Great's chance to launch that damage is doubled for that one turn. And the reason that's really good is because now any commander that has anything percent based on a normal attack, when put with Liu Che, has double that chance to trigger. On average, 1 in every 4 turns. The other really good thing about an extra normal attack is he gets an extra turn of damage, technically, and also he does not take extra counter attack back, plus he gets extra rage from it. So that is a really, really powerful expertise, and it's pretty much the most unique thing in his kit that no other commander in the game has. Now, what about the disadvantages for Liu Che? And unlike Scipio, he does have one major disadvantage, but other than that, there's not really much. And the one major disadvantage he has is that his third skill is really bad. Like, for what you're getting, you have to pretty much pay a ton of gold heads to get absolutely nothing, if anything, a major disadvantage, because the way it works is he's going to trigger smite damage, basically again once in every 4 turns, and the reason that's bad is because it's going to trigger his fourth skill, which removes the chance of it becoming an AoE debuff. So there is a chance that his third skill triggers, and then puts the cooldown on the fourth skill, which stops it from giving an AoE debuff on the active skill. So that is one disadvantage to that third skill right there. And also, it's an expensive upgrade for nothing. You're getting 15% extra attack and 200 extra smite damage from level 1 to level 5. So that is not a very good skill, and it's definitely not worth the gold heads. So that is one bad thing in his kit. So if you want to access his expertise, though, you will have to go through that skill, which means it is just bad value. So that is one definite major disadvantage in his kit. The next other disadvantage is that Liu Che's expertise is holding a lot of his value. Like, this 25% chance of an extra normal attack is probably 20 to 25% of his value, so you kind of want to get that. It should be a main priority, especially once Liu Che becomes an older commander and his stats don't just suffice. People will have to go for his expertise to fully benefit from him, and that can be an issue for newer players who are just getting like their first infantry pairing. It can be difficult to expertise that commander. To just go straight out 690 gold into them is definitely much more of an investment than maybe a 5551 commander like you could do with Scipio instead. Now, which commander is better for the open field? And I think there's a really simple way to answer it. It's based on the commanders that you currently own. If you own any of the following commanders, Scipio Africanus is the better option for you. If you have a high level Guan, whether it be expertise or close to expertise, Scipio is a much better commander than Liu Che. The other thing I like with Scipio is a low skill level Charles Martel or a low skill level Alexander the Great, because these two commanders at a lower skill level need the extra stats and the extra tankiness that Scipio is giving them. Rather than being able to somewhat tank on their own, they're going to need the extra tankiness that a commander like Scipio, a tanky primary commander, will bring. So a Martel like 5511 or an Alexander the Great at 5511 is going to need to be with Scipio over a Liu Che. The final commander which really stands out to me if you are really trying to make a powerful infantry march for a very cheap cost, Mehmed is so good with Scipio Africanus, much better with Scipio than he is with Liu Che. So Mehmed with Scipio is definitely a top tier march. So if you want to run that as a first ever infantry march, it definitely gives Scipio a major boost to his effectiveness and is definitely a good thing with Scipio. You can run in with Mehmed, double like that Mehmed, you have a strong march until you either want to swap it up and get Liu Che, or until you get maybe a cav and arch march, and then you go back and finish off the infantry, or even just leave it as it is and do other marches is perfectly fine. So Scipio is a lower investment, which I really do like, especially if you have that Mehmed at a decent level. So now that we know which commanders you need for Scipio, what about Liu Che? And if you have any of the following commanders, Liu Che is just the better choice. And right off the bat, Sargon and Tarek. Any of these two commanders, Liu Che is the best choice. Sargon, obviously, because he's just a beast with Liu Che, and then Tarek is almost like a primary commander, in my opinion, and he's going to work extremely well with Liu Che. If you have a Pyrrhus as well, Pyrrhus is an instantly, no questions asked, get Liu Che. There is no doubt about it, because Pyrrhus is one of the most insane infantry commanders with Liu Che, due to the ridiculous amount of normal attack he's bringing, and the fact that his relic is also fairly strong, giving him an increase in skill damage, obviously, which is not going to benefit Liu Che, but it is giving him an increase in defense as well, which is going to benefit Liu Che. So Pyrrhus is pretty much like the Mehmed for Liu Che, if not better, because he really synergizes extremely well with Liu Che. So if you got a Pyrrhus at a high skill level, whether it be that you got him from the Wheel of Fortune, Gold Chest, Daily Special Offer, doesn't matter, he's going to be the instant best choice for Liu Che. And for most early game players, if you want to buy a Daily Special Offer, Pyrrhus is a really good choice if you want to go for an infantry march, because Liu Che with Pyrrhus is ridiculously overpowered. So if you want to grab that, it's going to be a very solid march. Obviously, eventually you're going to replace that Pyrrhus with maybe a Sargon or a Scipio, but until then, it's going to be a very good placeholder commander, pretty much like I said, like a Mehmed for the Liu Che. Also, if you have a really high skill level Alex or a high skill level Martel, then you could also consider Liu Che. For Martel, he has to be expertise to get the extra march speed. For Alex, I would say like a 5-5-5-1, something like that would be really good, because you're getting extra march speed, and you're also getting extra attack, and you're getting other stats, which do help boost Liu Che a little bit. So I do like having Alex at least 5-5-5-1, that's 3 skills max before you would consider getting Liu Che, and I do have to have Martel at expertise before you would consider to get Liu Che, because otherwise you're missing too many stats and too much march speed to fully justify it. So a high level Alex or a high level Martel would justify getting Liu Che. Otherwise, put them with a Scipio, because then they will benefit a little bit more. Now, overall, which commander stronger? Is Liu Che better than Scipio, or is Scipio better than Liu Che? And I think there's really two answers to this. If you're a late game veteran player, they're very equal. If you're a veteran player, Liu Che works extremely well as a strong secondary or a very squishy primary commander with any strong tanky infantry commander, whether it be Scipio, whether it be Sargon, whether it be Tax, not necessarily tanky, but a good primary commander, then Liu Che is going to perform well. But if you don't have those commanders, you don't have as much of a diversified portfolio, as I like to say it, then you're going to want to get Sargon, because Sargon works a lot better with those older infantry commanders who are not as strong on the open field, because he's going to be able to boost them more than Liu Che can. So you're going to notice that Scipio for newer players is definitely my go-to choice, but for older players, I would say that Liu Che is definitely the go-to, even though you probably already have Scipio, which doesn't mean it really matters. On the open field, I think they're fairly equal. Liu Che maybe takes a slight lead in terms of trades, but Liu Che needs a tanky primary, so without the tanky primary, he's nothing. It's pretty much like running a Zulang YSG. Without the tanky primary, it doesn't trade as good, but with a Boudica or a Henry in front of it, then it's going to trade much better. So Liu Che is a strong infantry commander, but he needs a good primary. Scipio is a strong infantry commander that needs a good secondary, but Scipio can get access to a secondary easier than Liu Che can get access to a primary, which is probably why I would give the point to Scipio on this one. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, you can see it's 15:15 UTC. Searched it up in Sydney Standard Time. It's 1:15 AM where I live. Please subscribe. I need your subscription. And anyone who does subscribe, it is much appreciated. It definitely supports me as a content creator. It drives me to do dumb things like stay up at 1:15 AM and have to reset my Wi-Fi. So guys, please do consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. I really do appreciate it. It is definitely helping me as a content creator. And YouTube also likes when people subscribe. So if you want to support me, consider subscribing to the channel. It's literally free. To all the current subscribers, my appreciation out to you. And to all the people who just subscribed, a major thank you. Now, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.